One thing I have genuinely realized is attractive women are literally treated way different than how we expect them to be treated. Literally, I knew an attractive woman, right? And you would think this girl had a bunch of, everybody was nice to her, this, that, and the third. No, attractive women actually get treated like crap. They get cheated on, they get rejected, ghosted, and that's just because they get lusted after, right? So when you get lusted after, you're attracting dudes who have a bunch of lust. But then on the other hand, you gotta think about it. If they go out in public, girls are being rude to them because they're jealous, envious of each other. You have to understand the real attractive women on this planet get literally treated like they're dog crap, bro. They start posting on IG. Nobody's really liking their posts. Nobody's really commenting. But they'll flood all these comments on girls who they're not going to be getting approached by men. Most men will think they have a bunch of guys on the line, so they're not going to approach. And it's like, even if you do reject a guy, it's like the guy starts like low-key beefing with you. Like, being attractive as a woman, not coming from me, I'm not no woman, I'm a man, bro. But I seen it. If you actually understand these attractive girls' lives, you understand it. That's what it really is. These girls are just isolated, just in house watching TV, Netflix, and it makes you kind of like lonely. I'm not gonna lie, but the best thing to do with that is not to get down about that. You can get closer to God, get in the gym, get money about yourself.
It could be the prettiest girls with the lowest confidence. Let me talk to y'all real quick. When I say it be the prettiest girls with the lowest confidence and self-esteem, it's because most of the time, the pretty girls, them been emotionally strangled so many times, they don't even know how to make sense of whoever they are. If you've experienced this, you're gonna feel this on a whole different level, for real. When you think about it, right, growing up sometimes, especially as a more attractive female, you probably got a lot of hate, a lot of dislike, a very passionate, hateful response from other women, other young girls around your age. And most of the time, we're very impulsive, emotionally driven, right, at that time. So adolescence, youth, childhood, it's a whole lot of emotions and just trying to understand and make sense of it. And so just imagine being on the receiving end of someone that's already emotionally confused and then showing you a hatred or dislike because they can't even make sense of who the hell they're becoming into or coming into. It starts there, right? And then you start growing up, you start dating, you start talking to guys and all of that good jazz. And as you're doing that, a lot of those men come with baggage and stress and trauma despite their acknowledgement of it. And it now transfers on to you. So now they, because they question themselves and they lack that confidence, are now portraying that, or I should say, displaying that in a way where they are now emotionally abusing you. However you want to put it, right? Whether you want to say they got mama issues or daddy issues, whatever it is, it's a traumatic response and they are now deflecting on you. And a lot of times what that looks like is that they beat you verbally. They abuse you verbally. They say things like, you'll never find another man like me. You'll never get another me. I'm the only man that will treat you this good. You're not even really worth anybody taking the time for you. Who else gonna date you? Who else gonna love you like I love you? Start to make you question the way you show up in the world. They start to belittle you and make it seem like your identity is not true and that they are forming an identity for you based off of what? I made a video in the past talking about energy vampires and how you got to be careful what you share with certain people. Well, the same thing goes when you're in a relationship, and you got to be very mindful about what it is that you are sharing with your partner. And I hate to say that because I truthfully want to encourage full transparency in all relationships. But there's a certain type of relationship that you can be fully transparent in. There's one in which a man makes you feel safe and secure and protected and guided. I didn't say loved, because the interpretation of love is so different for all of us.
There is a silent war happening in the hearts of men when they encounter a woman who radiates beauty, grace, and inner power. It is not the kind of war that looks like violence or aggression, not always. It is often invisible, veiled behind coldness, ghosting, avoidance, or the subtle devaluation of the very thing that once drew him in. If you are a woman who has ever been told you are too much, too intense, too emotional, or too intimidating, then understand this. What he is rejecting is not your essence. It is the unconscious wound you unknowingly activate in him. Carl Jung taught that every person carries a shadow, the parts of ourselves that have been repressed, shamed, or unacknowledged. For many men, this shadow contains feelings of inadequacy, fear of feminine power, shame around vulnerability, and unresolved mother wounds. When a woman shows up in her full light, beautiful, intelligent, emotionally deep, and spiritually radiant, she unconsciously threatens the parts of him he has never made peace with. And so, he attacks not her, but what she symbolizes. The hatred he projects is not toward the woman, it is toward the reflection she holds up to his inner emptiness. Let's be clear. This is not a hatred born from logic or rationality. It is archetypal. It is ancestral. It is ancient and deeply emotional. For centuries, the feminine has been suppressed, both culturally and individually. Men have been taught to conquer, control, and dominate, not feel, nurture, and surrender. So, when a woman arrives who invites emotional depth, vulnerability, and the sacred chaos of the feminine, many men panic. They either pedestalize her to avoid confronting their own unworthiness, or they diminish her to avoid feeling powerless. This isn't about you. It's about the part of him he never learned to love. Attractive women often become unconscious projective screens for men's shadows. This is especially true if you are not just physically attractive, but also emotionally aware and spiritually attuned. You don't just walk into a room, you shift the energy of it. You don't just talk, you activate something ancient in him. It's not fair, but it's real. You are not just meeting the man in front of you, you are meeting every wound, every fear, every unresolved trauma that lives within him. His reaction is not personal, even though it feels that way. It's psychological warfare disguised as romance. If he disappears after intense intimacy, if he seems angry when you express your truth, if he oscillates between needing you and pushing you away, don't internalize that as your fault. What you are witnessing is the emotional whiplash of a man battling his own subconscious. He may love how you make him feel alive, yet simultaneously resent how you make him feel exposed. This is the paradox of the feminine trigger. The more whole and radiant you are, the more it confronts the parts of him that remain fractured and afraid. You are not breaking him. You are reflecting back that he was already broken. Carl Jung explained this through the idea of projection. When something within us is too painful to confront, we project it outward onto another. For many men, the emotionally whole woman becomes the mirror they want to shatter, not because she is harmful, but because she is honest. She reveals, she stirs, she invites. And if a man is not ready to meet himself, he will sabotage the connection, vilify the woman, or retreat into ego. This is why so many women are blamed for being dramatic, demanding, or difficult, when in fact, they are just unwilling to shrink for a man's comfort. It's also why men can simultaneously be obsessed with a woman and resentful of her. The emotional dissonance is unbearable. She becomes the mother he couldn't please, the lover he couldn't control, the part of his soul he abandoned long ago. He wants her, but he can't face what she makes him feel. And so he runs, he cheats, he gaslights, or he shuts down. Not because she is unworthy, but because her presence is too revealing. You must understand this if you are to maintain your power and not self-abandon in the face of emotional chaos. Most women try to compensate when this happens. They become quieter, smaller, nicer. They beg, explain, overfunction, or start walking on eggshells to keep the man calm. But this only feeds the dysfunction. You cannot heal a man by bleeding for him. You cannot soothe his shadow by dimming your own light. The more you shrink to be loved, the more you teach him that your power is negotiable. And that is the first betrayal, not of him, but of yourself. Your beauty is not the problem. Your strength is not the problem. His unhealed wounds are. Attractive women must learn how to discern between being truly too much and being too much for a man's current level of consciousness. There is a difference. One is about you, the other is about him. The work is not to change yourself to become palatable. The work is to stand in your full truth and allow the right energy to meet you there. Not all men can, and that is okay. You are not here to be digested. You are here to be witnessed. And only a man who has faced his own darkness can love a woman who lives in her light. Many of the wounds you trigger in a man have nothing to do with romance. They are the echoes of his childhood pain, his unresolved traumas, and his societal conditioning. A woman who is confident and expressive might remind him of a mother who withheld love. A woman who is sexually liberated might confront his shame around desire. A woman who is emotionally articulate might expose how emotionally illiterate he truly feels. None of this is your fault, but you must be conscious of how your presence functions psychologically, or you will take on burdens that were never yours to carry. Let's pause here and say this clearly. You are not responsible for a man's healing. You can hold space. Yes, you can offer compassion, but you must never contort your soul to accommodate his wounds. Carl Jung said that the greatest gift we can give the world is our own individuation, our own integration of light and shadow. This means becoming whole within yourself rather than seeking approval from someone who has not done their inner work. The more healed you are, the more you will trigger those who are not. But that is not your problem to solve. There is a haunting pattern that many high-value women encounter in relationships, an invisible punishment for simply being who they are. When you walk into a room with quiet confidence, when you speak your truth without apology, when you love with depth, when you glow without needing validation, you don't just attract admiration, you also awaken deep-seated fear in the hearts of unready men. This fear doesn't always show itself as trembling or vulnerability. No, it often comes disguised as contempt, ghosting, sarcasm, condescension, or emotional shutdown. It is the armor of a man afraid to be seen in the presence of a woman who sees too much. A woman who sees too much is dangerous to the male ego that is still ruled by its wound. She doesn't just see his potential, she sees the contradiction between what he says and what he does. She feels when his heart has closed, even as his body pulls hers closer. She detects when his soul is starving, even if his smile insists that he's fine. And this level of attunement, this piercing intuition, is intolerable to a man who has built his entire identity on disconnection. He doesn't hate her. He hates the emotional truth she invites him to confront. This is why some men will try to discredit your intuition. They'll call it paranoia, drama, overthinking. But that's because they fear it. They fear how clearly you can read them. They fear that you can feel their ambivalence, their fear of commitment, their inner child begging for love while their adult self pushes you away. They fear how easily you can see behind the mask. And so, rather than honor your sensitivity, they make you question it. Rather than face their truth, they make you feel crazy for naming it. But always remember, gaslighting is the last refuge of an emotionally unprepared man faced with a spiritually mature woman. Jung called this kind of spiritual maturity individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of ourselves, including the shadow. But most people, especially men raised to suppress emotion, never begin this process. They project instead. They blame. They run. And the more whole a woman is, the more she triggers the unfinished business inside a man. Not because she's wrong, but because she's real. Her presence demands that he either evolve or retreat. And most will choose retreat. Not because they don't care, but because evolution is terrifying when you've spent your whole life hiding from yourself. So, if he pulls away after telling you how deeply he feels for you, if he disappears right after a breakthrough moment of emotional intimacy, if he sabotages the relationship right as things begin to feel safe, understand the pattern. He's not running from you. He's running from the mirror you hold. A mirror that reflects his vulnerability, his need, his hidden softness, his hunger for a connection he doesn't yet feel worthy of. This is not your rejection. It is his retreat into the familiar coldness of self-protection. And the worst thing you can do is chase him there. Because the moment you chase him, you abandon yourself. You leave your throne to beg at the gates of his avoidance. And no matter how sincere your intentions, this reversal of polarity will always breed resentment. You'll start to feel unworthy. He'll start to feel suffocated. And what was once a divine connection becomes a trauma bond, a desperate dance between a woman trying to be loved and a man trying not to be exposed. This is why you must stand still. Let him feel your absence. Let him sit in the echo of what he just lost. Let him wrestle with the shadow you awakened. Not because you are punishing him, but because he must choose whether to confront himself or continue hiding. One of the most painful truths attractive women must accept is this. The more you embody your full feminine energy, your light, your sensuality, your emotional honesty, the more you will trigger those who have yet to reclaim their masculine integrity. You will confuse them. You will overwhelm them. And some will try to break you, simply to restore their illusion of power. They cannot control the fire within you, so they'll try to smother it. But don't let them. Your radiance is not a problem to fix. It is a filter. And anyone who is blinded by your light was never meant to walk in your sun. There are men who will tell you they're not ready. There are men who will say they need space. There are men who will act like they don't care. Don't argue, don't plead, don't try to prove your worth. Because their departure is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a revelation of their unreadiness. The soul recognizes what the ego denies. And sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do is walk away without trying to explain yourself to someone who hasn't even met themselves yet. Jung once said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And that includes abandoning love, especially love that is pure, love that sees them, love that says, I won't save you, but I will stand with you while you save yourself. Most men have never heard that before, and many aren't ready to receive it, so they push it away. But never confuse that pushing for rejection. It's a coping mechanism, a trauma reflex, an old survival strategy that whispers, don't get too close or you'll be hurt again. This is not your cross to bear. You are not responsible for healing the wounds that came before you, but you are responsible for not becoming a casualty of them. Your empathy is a gift, but without boundaries, it becomes self-sacrifice. And self-sacrifice is not love. It is self-abandonment dressed up in spiritual language. You cannot pour your soul into a cup with holes in the bottom. No matter how sacred the connection feels, no matter how strong the chemistry, if a man cannot hold space for your depth, your clarity, your emotional honesty, then he is not your container. He is your lesson. And here's the most painful part. Many women, especially beautiful and emotionally aware ones, are used to being the healer, the nurturer, the one who understands, and so they fall into the trap of believing that their love can transform a man who is still hiding from his own shadow. But Jung warned us, unconscious people don't change through love alone. They change through crisis, through choice, through confronting the parts of themselves they've buried. And no woman, no matter how loving, can do that work for them. All she can do is embody her truth and let go of anything that cannot meet her there.